Welcome back to Exceptional Undergrads, a podcast where we interview successful students and explore how they achieve success at a young age. Be sure to check out our show notes at exceptionalundergrads.com for all resources mentioned in today's episode. Today I welcome Angelea Collins to the show. Angelea recently graduated from St. John Fisher University up in New York, where she studied marketing and sales. During her time at SJFU, she was a student athlete involved in many positions on campus. She also runs her own cupcake business, Frosted, which she has scaled over the past few years. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Angelea Collins. Angelea, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, and I am happy to be here.
For sure. I'm excited to dive into some of your accomplishments, your journey, and just to hear what you're all about here. Would you like to start us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the stuff you've accomplished so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently a senior marketing major at St. John Fisher University in Rochester, New York. And I am very involved in the business school and outside of business school. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my cupcake business called Frosted in 8th grade. And it started as a hobby. I turned it into a business and scaled it to a point where I could take it full time after school. But outside of being an entrepreneur, I am the president of the Dean Student Advisory Council, which is a council of about 12 members throughout the business school. And we meet monthly to go over needs of the business school and to really create a more welcoming and inclusive environment within the School of Business. And so I've really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot about leadership and how to really manage a team and manage projects. I'm also an RA and a student athlete, which keeps me busy, but I really enjoy everything that I'm involved in, and I'm ready and I'm excited to dive into all the questions that you have for me.
Sweet. You seem very, very busy on campus right
I
now
am.
with the
I am.
business and all the rest of the
Yeah.
stuff you have going on. What's really
Yeah.
motivated you so far to just go all in on getting on campus?
Yeah. So coming into college as a freshman, I really knew from the start that I wanted to be involved and within the business school and just on campus in general. And that's really from the get-go. That's been my goal. And over the past 4 years, I've just accumulated more things to do, which is good and bad. I find myself sometimes feeling like I'm working full time and then I'm a student on the side. So there's pluses and minuses to it. But I really love the work that I'm doing. I love my major. I love the classes that I'm in and my studies. So enjoying what you do and really taking that motivation and using it to propel yourself forward in an area of growth is what's really helped me.
Do you have a favorite thing that you do on campus since you have so much stuff going on?
Oh, that's a good question. I enjoy I enjoy being involved in the business school. Like I said, I'm the president of the Dean Student Advisory Council, but outside of that, I started the entrepreneurship club on so that is called the Fisher Entrepreneurs Association. And I started it when I was a freshman and grew it to what it is today. And I passed off I am not involved anymore. I attend, but there's a new e-board that runs it. So I've enjoyed being involved in different clubs on campus, investment club, entrepreneurship club, family business club. And with all of that involvement comes different opportunities of networking. I've attended Cornell University for family business conferences, Columbia University. I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow for a national marketing trip for a couple days, which is exciting. But I think overall, being involved and really connecting with my peers and working on projects with them and building programs like clubs with them too has been really enjoyable.
So the entrepreneurship club
Yeah.
started it up. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
what was the process like to really start up an entire club on the campus over there at St. John Fisher's?
Yeah. So like I said, I started my business in 8th grade and I did this program called the Young Entrepreneur Academy. And it basically was a 30-week course that taught young students who are interested in business how to have an idea, formulate it into a business plan and a business model, and then launch it. and really execute that idea and plan. And from that program, I really found an inspiration for entrepreneurship, and I found my passion for it. And I wanted to take that passion for entrepreneurship and bring it to where I was going. So out of high school, I came to Fisher. There wasn't really any entrepreneurship club. There wasn't no entrepreneurship major or minor. And with the help of the dean and some faculty and professors, I was able to work with other students and really develop our business model for our club. And we put together like contracts and an e-board, and we really developed it from the ground up, which was very interesting. It's like starting a business. So it was cool to use what we're going to teach students to like develop our club and really formulate it into something that not only will benefit current students, but will have the longevity to impact the school as a whole. And since then, the club still exists with a new e-board, but we have an entrepreneurship program, and next year we will have a minor.
That's fantastic. You're
Mm-hmm.
groundbreaking stuff over there. And
Yeah,
now they're
it is.
having a minor with it. That's amazing. You talked a bunch about networking so
Mm-hmm.
far, and especially the importance that that's played in not only your business as well as these clubs that you've started up. Do you have any cool networking tips that college students can use to just make more friends even? I feel like
Yeah,
sometimes we use the word networking and it's like so like professional and whatnot. But
yeah,
I was talking to another guy the other day and he was telling me basically I hopped on a call with him from
uh-huh.
LinkedIn. I just wanted to hear more about him and whatnot. I'm all about that now. We use the term networking all the time, but I feel like what he said was a lot about it's not really even networking. It's really just going out and making friends. So
Yeah. It's
do
building
you have any tips for
relationships.
building relationships in
Yeah,
a more professional way, like networking?
yeah. Yeah, I like what you said, that networking should be not used as like 'cause when we say networking, it's like professional and it's like, oh, you have your resume and you have your business cards and you're going to go network. But really, we're networking all the time. Like I'm networking all day long, whether it's with my friends, with my professors, with the interviews that I have for jobs. Like you never know who you're going to meet. You never know that what opportunity will come from meeting that person. And really one relationship at a time, one person at a time. It could be as small as, hey, it was so nice to meet you. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn and maybe we can have an informational interview. Simple as that. And that will turn into opportunities that are endless. And it starts, as you start doing that more and more and you get comfortable with that, you start building this network that's huge. Like that's what I've been doing since freshman year. And now I am reaping the benefits. I'm seeing the fruit from putting myself out there and being vulnerable and being uncomfortable, but being comfortable with being in the uncomfortable. So really the tips that I have is get yourself out there. Don't be afraid to sell yourself. It's going to feel a little uncomfy, but you'll definitely reap the rewards once you see the benefits from it.
I totally agree. I love what you said about being comfortable being uncomfortable. I think
Hmm.
that is a massive thing that I've seen in some of the undergrads that I've interviewed so far, and even
Yeah.
some of my friends here at High Point, is whenever you're pushing yourself into uncomfortable situations and you become comfortable with those, these
Yeah.
hard situations that you feel like are like so unbelievably like hard for you to do and really just battle through become so much easier, and it makes not only those situations in your life easier, but it makes the other situations in your life so much easier as well.
Hmm.
So, from an interview that I had a little bit ago with a guy named Mikey Russo, he talked about how he met this guy randomly at the gym. I think he was like
Yeah.
a CIA agent. And he
Hmm.
said, the more that you make your life hard now, the easier your life will be later. And I think putting yourself out in these
Wow.
uncomfortable situations
Hmm.
and becoming comfortable with them is able to really push yourself to become the person who you
Yeah.
really want to be in your life.
Yeah, it's so true. And I really like to use the phrase get comfortable with the uncomfortable because we do that daily, right? We That's how we learn. You have to be able to be comfortable with not only being the dumbest in the room, but also being vulnerable and showing, and in those times of vulnerability, showing your resilience, showing your capabilities and your abilities and your skill set. And ultimately, selling yourself and making yourself stand out will bring opportunities, will bring those networking opportunities that I just mentioned. But yeah, it's in being uncomfortable and in situations that you're unfamiliar. It's that you learn so much from that. And it comes with time. It's not like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. Now I'm comfortable. It takes time. It really does. And a specific example for me is interviewing. It freaked me out, right? Interviewing. Because again, just like networking, the word interview is like so like scary. And I created this whole stigma in my head about interviews. And it's like this scary thing. And I learned over the past 3 years that it's an interview is just a conversation. It's a time to really get to know the company that you're interviewing with, get to know the person who's interviewing you and sell yourself and know your capabilities and just sell them on as to why you're the best candidate. And what's helped me with getting comfortable with this is informational interviews, which is different from an interview. So an informational interview, you probably know, is just sitting down with someone who you're familiar with and asking them about their career path, things they've learned, and such like and other things like that. But that has really helped me with getting comfortable with an actual interview. And now that I am more comfortable with it, I can have an interview and like not even think twice about it.
I think the informational interviews, like you said, these like practice interviews where you're talking to
Yeah.
people and just asking them questions and getting comfortable at speaking to
Yeah.
people are things that are just so unbelievably important for people to do.
Yeah.
That's
And
something that I've learned myself here, just even interviewing more people. And
mhm,
it's just made me more comfortable with any sort of interview or with any sort of
yeah.
conversation that I have, anyways.
And I've been told like for years that the most important aspect in an interview that employers are looking for is the questions you ask at the end of your interview. And if you don't come prepared with questions, it really sets you apart from another person you're competing with for the same position, right? So informational interviews has really helped me come prepared, come with questions because essentially you're interviewing them. So you have to come with questions. They're not asking you questions, you're asking them questions. So it's really helped me have like a set list of questions to ask everyone who I'm meeting with. And it's helped me be comfortable with asking questions to people who I'm actually interviewing with, which has been helpful.
Yes. Another thing that I really liked about what you said a little bit ago. I know we talked about informational interviews here
Hmm.
for a second, but you said something along the lines of like being the dumbest person in the room. Like we're very
Yeah.
scared sometimes to be the dumbest person in the room.
Hmm.
And that reminded me of a quote by a other podcaster named Chris Williamson. He hosts
Hmm.
the show Modern Wisdom. He has
Okay.
on a lot of different guests, like he's had on Andrew Huberman and David Goggins, and he just has on guests who are like very like important people, I guess, at this point. Or maybe not important,
Yeah.
but very popular who
Hmm.
are have their own
Hmm.
shows or ran businesses or other things like that. He said his quote from his podcast was that he has made a career off of being the dumbest person in the room like 700 or whatever times, and that's how he's able to have a podcast that has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and
Yeah.
is super successful. Obviously, there's some consistency in there as well, having done
Right.
like 700 episodes as well. But I just
Hmm.
found it very interesting that he said like just being able to be the dumbest person in the room and just act like, man, like I have something to learn here, and this is okay if I don't know everything,
Yeah.
and going into it with a sense of like, I get it, like I might not be there yet for this certain person or whatever, but I'm
Hmm.
able to learn more. I think that's a huge thing that if some undergrads take, it could be good. It's something that I've struggled with myself as well. I saw this actually honestly today in one of my classes. One of my
Hmm.
classes is it's a financial management class. We sit in Microsoft Excel all the time, and I'm pretty good
Hmm.
with Microsoft Excel. So
Hmm.
I can do the spreadsheets that we work on in class fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And then I sit there. I've noticed myself even today thinking of basically that like I know everything already.
Hmm.
And I keep trying to whenever I hear myself like saying that, like this is easy, like I don't have to worry about it. I know already about all the stuff. Anytime I have that in my head, I've been telling myself like basically like check my own ego because like there's a
Yeah.
lot more
Right.
other things. Because sometimes we assume that we know so much whenever
Right.
in fact we don't at all.
Yeah, and it's funny because in those situations, you really are like, "Oh, yep, I know everything. I don't really have to pay attention," or something like that. But it's you never know who you're going to learn from. It might be your professor, it might be someone younger than you. Like we're learning from each other right now. Like it's hard for me too to go into a room and be comfortable with not being the smartest in the room and also checking myself like, okay, if I am, then what can I learn from other people? And that really is a stepping stone that I've taken, and it's a perspective change for me that has helped me um, grow, that's helped me learn. But it's being in those uncomfortable situations where you're not the smartest in the room. That's where you learn. You never want to be in a room full of people who are all like who you're smarter than all of them, because what's the point? You're not going to learn from them, right? The whole goal of business is to learn and to get better and to better yourselves to better ourselves professionally and personally. And if we don't put ourselves in situations or in environments that doesn't allow for rooms of growth, then I think it's just a waste of time.
Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect before?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna try and draw this for you, but
Okay.
I'll flash a picture up for like the people who are watching the
Right.
video.
Yeah.
I'll try and explain this good for the people who are listening.
Okay.
So basically, the Dunning-Kruger effect says that it's like a false confidence whenever you first start getting to know something.
hmm
So it's it's expressed like really well in a graph form. So imagine like a very steep like upstart essentially, and then once this at the peak here is where people think that they know like everything
hmm
essentially. Like they have a lot of confidence, think that they know all the stuff, even though they just started out on whatever this thing is.
hmm
And then from there, they fall down really quickly into like this valley of despair, basically, I think is what they call it,
hmm
where they think that they now know like they basically get like a reality check and they realize like, oh, I actually like don't know anything. There's so much stuff for me to actually know and learn from. And then they like slowly essentially like go up to like learning more things from
Hmm.
there.
Interesting.
One of the things that said it'd be better with a graph, so
Yeah.
I'll flash that, or at least I'll send something to you probably afterwards to make it a little bit better. But it basically says like talks about how like experts like realize that they actually are not like they don't know like everything,
Hmm.
and the people who are just starting out, if you see someone who's like unbelievably overly confident, they probably actually don't know as much as they think they know. And I
Hmm.
found that very interesting. And it's something even myself, like I was saying in this financial management class, I keep trying to catch myself to make sure that I'm not like at this peak of like very high confidence, even
hmm
though there's probably a lot more that I can learn. I
Right.
think taking on that mindset of there's a lot more that I can learn, not only from people who just people in general, because like we
hmm
just said, like we're learning from each other right now. We could be
Right.
learning from literally anybody else, and it really just comes
hmm
down to the questions that you ask other people.
Right. It's very interesting. I've never heard of that. Thanks for sharing.
Of course. All right, let's get a little bit back on track here. We went on a little bit of a
Okay.
tangent. I liked
We
it,
did.
but I want to hear more about how you started up your cupcake business,
hmm
Frosted.
Yeah. So, like I said, I started it in eighth grade through a program called the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, which was a 30-week course that is tailored around students who are interested about business and who want to learn more. So, I had one of the directors of the program came into my classroom in eighth grade and like pitched this whole program, and I went home and I was like, this is so cool. Like the idea of turning your idea into a business and making money off of it, how like that's genius, right? And I was so excited over this like simple model, which like now like 8 years 9 years later I'm like, okay, Angelea, like that's what business is. But that's where the spark started. And so I enrolled in the course, and the first 10 weeks is idea generation. So you take an idea that you have or you develop a new one and really fine tune that, and then the next 10 weeks is taking the idea, crafting and implementing an entire business plan with all the financials, and then putting a business model together. After that, the last 10 weeks is presenting it and pitching it to investors to get real money to invest into your company, and then trade shows and marketing. So that's the course, or that's the program that I went through. And since then, it has grown into what I can call like a full time business. I'm doing it year round, primarily in the summer, but it's a cupcake catering company, and I work with clients during the school year when I'm busy at school and with all the things that I'm involved in here. And then I fine tune like details of events. I primarily cater weddings right now. And
Hmm.
that's really been a shift of like my market. First I started out with like family friends. Like I was only in 8th grade. So like what were my customers going to be? But as I've learned more about business and entrepreneurship in my classes and through the club that I started to implement what I've learned into my business. And that's really helped it grow. It's helped it scale, and it's really helped it change my clientele from those like 35-year-old moms who want cupcakes for their kid's birthday party to like upscale weddings where I'm like catering for over 300 people. So it's really cool to see the growth that I've had over the past 9 years, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how I can continue it after I graduate, because I've never had an opportunity to run my business full time. I've always had it on the side, and probably right after school it will be on the side for a couple years, but I'm excited to see like new opportunities that will come with that.
That's fantastic. I want to ask you here too, what's the biggest thing that you've learned from running this business?
Hmm. That's a really good question. What have I learned? I think one of the biggest things of being an entrepreneur is you have to wear all the hats, especially when you start out. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. And in 8th grade, I had no idea what a DBA is. I didn't know what a licensing was, like health and like get, certifications, like insurance. What is that, right? So it's been challenging to, especially when I was younger, to learn like different parts of how to run a business on like tax wise, like all the number stuff. But also like taking it when it reaches a ceiling, or like ceiling of growth, when I like the scale is like maxed out. What's challenging is it's only me and my family. So my capacity, I can't cater, and I can't, like my supply and demand is kind of off, right? So I have all this business coming in, and I've challenged I've been challenged with saying no to a lot of business that comes in because I just cannot produce that much. My infrastructure is not that big yet. And I just am not to that scale, which is challenging for me because I want to do all of it. But I just have to keep reminding myself that one day you will have the time and you will have the resources to do all of it, but right now is not the time. But keeping those client relationships and keeping those relationships strong when you have to say no to them is really important to generating business in the future.
How have your responsibilities for the business shifted since being in 8th grade in high school to where you are now in college?
Um, so I think responsibility wise, it has stayed the same, but it looks a little different now that I'm older and I have more responsibility and I have more business and more clients that I have to kind of work with and maintain those relationships. But responsibility wise, it's like I said, kind of the same. But as I've gotten older and as I know how to build a business and how to scale it and how to grow it, it's interesting, and it's fun to take what I've learned in the classroom and the tips that I've learned here at school and apply them to my business, because doing that creates more responsibility and creates more work um, on many different aspects. But the one thing that has changed drastically is the amount of work or the amount of communication and work that I put in with my clients because my clientele has changed. Right, starting out, it was like the mom and pop, like I was catering events like 2 dozen each, and they told me what flavors they wanted, and I made the cupcakes, right? But now it's more like party. It's like weddings, it's huge events, corporate events, golf outings, like just that takes a lot more planning than just a 2-year-old birthday party. So that's one of the things that I have learned how to manage is working with a client for months, planning the event, um, just ironing out the little details that matter and might not matter to my competitors, but they matter to me. And that's one of the things that's how I make myself stand out. But just maintaining communication and ironing out all the details before the event and ensures that it's going to just be a perfect ease into an event and make sure that I cover all their needs and my product is what they expect.
Are you baking these cupcakes just in your oven at your house
Yeah,
still? Or
so
I'm assuming that's
so
how you
it
probably started off, but
that's how I started, and then when need be, I will like, commercial kitchen.
hmm,
Yeah.
that's cool. What was the process like to get a commercial kitchen for you to start baking cupcakes?
So, you can just rent them out in wherever you are locally. So there's either, um, companies that rent or, like, charge a fixed rate, and then there's also, um, commercial kitchens. I know there's one here in Rochester, um, that you can just use, and it's a commercial kitchen that's up to health regulation standards.
That's cool. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Probably should have asked that a little earlier, but it's all good. Sweet. Okay, so you started up this business in 8th grade.
Mhm.
What was your time like in high school, in an 8th grade there, in comparison to college, and how do you think that you've grown since then?
Yeah. Um, I have grown a lot since then. I look back on pictures and I'm like, okay, first of all, how why did anyone let me wear my hair like that? And why did anyone let me wear an outfit like that? Like, first off, let's start there. But like personally, I've grown too, not only in business, but like just holistically, which is cool to see like the development of myself and ways that I've grown and ways it has impacted my business. But I don't know, it's I've grown like in the way I manage my business. I've grown in the way that I talk to people and build client relationships. It's cool to see because and when I was in 8th grade, marketing on social media and like influential marketing, it wasn't really a thing. So I starting off, I didn't really have a social media platform because it wasn't as big as it is today. And it was more brochure and like paper based. I printed business cards, and so which I still use, but now it's like more digital, which is cool to see like over 9 years where like marketing wise, like where it started and where it is now. So it's cool to see the growth since the beginning and on that aspect too. Like I remember I think I was in 10th grade and I started my Instagram page and I was on the bus on the way to a track meet. And all my friends were like, "Oh, let me follow it." And I was like, "This is so cool." Like it was just so exciting because I was starting an Instagram page for my business, which is like back then, like not a lot of businesses really had Instagram pages where they marketed their product to sell it. And now that's like my main form of marketing and that's my main form of communication and that's what's worked for me. So it's cool to see what I didn't do, how I started it, and now the fruits that I'm reaping from it.
How have you been able to maintain focus on this business and avoid things maybe like burnout?
Yeah. Yeah. Burnout is it happens. It really does. That's one thing that I have experienced and I still do. But it propels me forward and it really makes me focus and take a step back on why I do it and the meaning behind it and like how I started and the growth that I've seen from it. I remember one time I overbooked myself one weekend. I've done that many of times. Again, coming back to the I've learned to say no. This is one example. But I said yes to all these orders and then I would like started and I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And it caused me to stress out, all these things. I got it done. But man, it caused me to just overwork myself. And then after, like when I do overbook myself and when I do say yes to all these events, it causes me to not appreciate the work that I'm doing. It just causes me to like take advantage of like the enjoyment of baking and the enjoyment of running my own business, which causes a burnout because over and over and doing that over and over again, it's just it's more like yes, you're getting more business and you're making more money, but in the long run, like you're just burning yourself out, you're overworking yourself. And again, I don't have the resources like at this point because I do this part time when I'm a student to like hire someone which maybe in the future that will be something that I do that I put more my resources towards. But when it's just me and I'm wearing all the hats, it's definitely causes some burnout. But it's in those times where I have to take a step back and be like, okay, why do I do what I do? What's my passion? And remind myself that, okay, you are a business owner. You know what you're doing. You can do it. You've been doing it for the past 8 years. So it's definitely a learning experience when you do have burnouts, but burnouts are real and they hit hard. They do. And you probably experience them too when like I get them when I'm a student, like I'm a senior about to graduate. You think I want to do any homework? No.
That's awesome. You mentioned saying learning how to say no. This
Mhm.
reminded me of a quote. I can't exactly think of it to the exact degree. I can't think of it exactly, but I remember it's from Alex Hermosi, and he's talking about how saying no is such an important skill because a lot of times in life, it's not about the things that we say yes to; it's about the things we say no to, in
Mhm.
comparison to like making essentially like the decision making process of saying no to get us to go towards something that we actually want. Because if we
Mhm.
say yes to everything, then we fall into this trap of basically saying yes to everything and then having so much stuff coming at us that we don't know exactly what to do. It's like the person who starts a bunch of businesses and they're trying to juggle like a whole bunch of different businesses and keep them all afloat. When the
Mhm.
one person who just has like one business or is focusing on
Yeah.
just one thing, you're able to
Yeah.
get like so much more done. Or from a student perspective, it's like opening up a crazy amount of tabs on your computer to try and do like
Yep.
all your assignments that you need to do.
Which
When if
I've
you
done.
just focused on writing the one essay that you needed, then you'd probably get the stuff done faster.
Yeah.
How are you able to learn how to say no to
Yeah.
things?
Um, it's definitely something that I'm still working on. I'm not the best at it, and saying no what I mean when I say this is saying no to both business decisions and personal decisions and like academic wise, like, and I think it comes down to, I remember I went to this speaker and he said that you have to guard your time and you have to block out time in your schedule to your like for yourself, right? And you, even though you might have an hour of free time during the day where you don't have anything planned, you can't book anything in that hour because that might be the only hour in your day where you have free time to focus on yourself and take a step back and take a breath, right? So when I heard him say you have to guard your time and be protective over it and really block that time in your schedule for yourself and to do nothing, that really stood out to me because that was a point in my life when I still do this, book myself way too much. And I go for 12 hours and I just go and go and go and go. Interview and meetings and interview and meetings and all this stuff and it's overwhelming. Throw practice in there. Like it's just I can't catch a break, but I do it to myself, right? Because I don't know how to say no. I need to do it more often, right? And I don't mean that in a sense in a negative with a negative connotation, but more in a positive and like flipping it and saying, okay, I need to say no to this because I'm guarding my time. And if I do guard my time, I've learned that I'm more efficient in my work. I'm more productive and I produce better work because I'm not as exhausted. And I can like really, like what you were saying, fine tune and focus on one thing at a time instead of like overdoing myself, which causes burnout.
Have you heard of the term like flow state before?
It sounds familiar, but no, you'll have to
It's
remind me.
it's basically like whenever athletes talk about like being in the zone. It's like whenever you're like
Uh
totally
huh.
entrenched in whatever task you're doing. So
Yeah.
for a flow state, basically it'd be like if you're working on like one essay or whatever for homework, it's like getting so dialed in your essay that like that's the only thing that you're thinking about. Or
Hmm.
maybe for you said that you ran cross country as well
In track. Yeah.
in track. So like it's like running there and you're literally just running and like there's nothing else
Yeah.
going on essentially. If you can get yourself into these things, I've noticed myself in my own experience, you'll become like so much more productive and that comes by limiting the amount of stuff that you're doing. It's like dialing in and like focusing straight on like one thing. That's why I think unintentionally, but I guess I sort of just developed it. I say the
Hmm.
word like dialed all the time, like I'm like
Hmm.
dialing in on exactly what I want to do. And I just kind of was saying it like sort of jokingly around, but now I've noticed to myself whenever I like want to get a lot of work done, I'll be like, all right, I got to get dialed. I have to like
Hmm.
dial in exactly what I want to do.
Hmm.
And I'll put my phone in like a focus mode or I'll close down a bunch of other tabs and only work on like the one thing that I need. So I think that has been one of the biggest things for me whenever I want to be productive is getting to try and get myself into like a flow state as well,
Okay.
which is cool. Is there any times that you might do other things like that to become productive for yourself?
I like that you just mentioned that because that's definitely something that I need to start implementing in my day because when I do have the time to do my homework or do other tasks that need to get done, I find myself being so distracted by other things that need to get done. And believe it or not, I don't have a planner. I don't like write anything down. It's all in my head, which also probably causes my mind to spiral in times when I have time to sit down and do my work, which I've gotten better at. But um, what I've tried the flow state, I think that's what it's called, the flow state. Yeah. I've tried that a few times and one I was just it happened last week actually. I had this essay to write and I just did not want to write it, right? And because I had so many other things to do, but it was due the next day. Like I had to do it. It was due. And I remember I closed literally all my tabs, silenced my phone and just started writing and it took me like an hour to write the entire thing from start to finish. And I'm like, "Oh, I should have done that last week." But in my head, I had so many other things to do and it caused me to like overthink the entire assignment and like overwhelm myself with how much work I had to do. So that's definitely something I need to be better at is get into that flow state and get all the distractions out and really focus on one thing at a time. But it's hard because I have 1,000 things going on in my head and I start one assignment or start to write one email and I'm like, oh, I have to email this person. And then I start and I don't finish that thing and I start something new and then I'm like, okay. And then I have like 5 things started and nothing's finished. But it's interesting because that's how my mind works but I get all my work done somehow. But it's interesting. Definitely need to try the flow state.
Another good resource that I actually thought of while you were speaking as well was a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. It
Okay.
basically talks about how what deep work is essentially is it says professional work that requires intense focus and concentration.
Mhm.
So it's whenever you are it says that it's essential for like central it's essential for like knowledgeable work essentially. So it's whenever you're like I said, like basically in a flow state, these
Mhm.
works where you like have to basically focus like all your time on this. It's like the most important tasks that you can do. And then there's like the lighter work, which is just the stuff that you can kind of do while you're sort of distracted or like hanging out with other people or friends or
Mhm.
whatnot. I've noticed for myself, it actually says it right here. This is perfect. I have a thing for the book. It says deep work promotes a sense of flow, meaning, and sacredness. So it kind of connects to the thing that I was talking about before, which is flow states. So if you can get yourself into this deep work period of time for yourself or book off. That's what I used to do a while ago. I still do it every now and then, but I'd literally in my calendars like book off like deep work from this time to this time, usually in
Mm.
the mornings, for me to
Huh.
just that's whenever I got my work done that I needed to get done. And that's where
That's
I'd get into a flow state of sorts.
that's really
So I
helpful.
think that that could be something that'd be good for you to maybe try and for some of the listeners
Yeah.
to try to make sure
Thank
that
you.
you're focusing on the exact thing that's like the highest leverage task that you could be doing at the time or the thing that you really need to get done.
Yeah. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Of course.
And you said
Do
it's
you,
a book?
yeah, it's a book. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. I can send
Okay.
it to you afterwards
Awesome.
if you want.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any other books that have helped you out that you'd
Um,
want to recommend to some people?
I've started Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's what it's
Ooh.
called, right? Yeah. So I
Yeah.
started Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm not far into it at all, but it's because I've heard so many people say so many good things about it. So and finance and numbers is something not my strong suit, and it's something like that I want to get better at. So I've really enjoyed the few chapters that I've read, and I recommend that book to other people because I think it's a good resource. And takes a different perspective on things that we don't necessarily learn how to do in school. But other than that, not many. I'm not a big book reader. I want to make the excuse that I don't have time, but I do have time, but I just don't make time.
It's all good. We've all been there. Sometimes I'm struggling right now to read some more books. I feel like I'm doing a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'll
Hmm.
toss on a podcast every now and then, which is
Hmm.
what I like. I mean, I run a podcast too, so
Yeah.
I feel obligated to go and listen to other ones
All
sometimes.
right. What
But
podcast do you recommend for business students like me?
I'd say check
Just
out anything by Alex Hermosi. He has a podcast called The Game by Alex Hermosi. That's what it's
okay.
called. That one's really good. There's also a podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire, which I'll listen to every now and then. That
Okay.
one's a pretty good one. And then the one that I mentioned beforehand by Chris Williamson is called Modern Wisdom. That one
Would you
isn't
mind
as
sending these to me?
Yeah, of course.
I'm trying to type them, but it's just not working.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a little about your experiences with leadership on campus. What do you think that students get wrong about leadership given your experience that you've had so
Hmm.
far?
Yeah. The biggest leadership role that I hold right now, I've mentioned it earlier, was the Dean Student Advisory Council. And I'm president of this committee. I joined it as a sophomore. And um, I have I guess rose in the ranks ever since, but I've just stayed involved in it. But now that I'm the president, I kind of am the leader and lead a group of students who look to me for responsibility, who look to me for guidance and leadership. And it's interesting because I thought I knew what a leader was before I entered this role. And I totally did not. And it's crazy because once you're in a leadership position, you learn what a leader is first-handedly, and it's different from what we've been taught. You get this experience, and one thing that stands out to me is having the self-control to not do the work yourself, but assigning it to other people and giving responsibility to other people, because and not having that urge to just do it yourself and be the micromanager. I'm not saying that I'm a micromanager at all, but it's so easy for me to, and that's kind of like the lifestyle that I'm so used to, is just do it all yourself. Like as a business owner, I do everything myself and I'll ask for help if I need it. But as a leader now in the business school, my job is to give responsibility and give work to other people who want to help me, right? And that's why they are also involved, is to help out and to take responsibility. So it's hard for me to take all this work and distribute it to everyone and take a seat back, take a step back and really look at it and say, okay, I trust that you guys are going to do work. I know that you're going to do good work. But it's like kind of taking a step back and like being comfortable with not having full control and being comfortable with it's not going to turn out the way you would do it specifically, but it's going to get done and it's going to get done right. So as a leader, that's the one thing that I've learned, that you have to be comfortable with not having control all the time and not being able to do the work the way that you would want to do it. And can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. On the more personable side of leadership, how to manage people is something that I've learned. Like I said, I manage and lead a group of students who are my age. All of them are my friends. So that comes with a whole nother level of responsibility, keeping them accountable, making sure that they're doing their work, not only right, but well. And in the times that they don't show up to mandatory events or don't do their work that is required and due, like it's hard as a leader who is also the age of people she's leading. It's hard for me to take like the friendship out of the way and be like, okay, professionally, like these are standards that need to be met. These are your responsibilities. Let's have a conversation as to why you didn't meet your goals, why you didn't get the work done on time, like why I didn't show up to this meeting, and being lenient with them because I understand they're students as well and they have other responsibilities, but also having a tough conversation with them and really setting goals and boundaries and the expectations back up to where they were supposed to be. That's definitely challenging, especially as a leader who's leading people of the similar age.
How have you learned to delegate better? Because I think that that's something that people struggle with, especially younger and potentially business owners as well. I've found myself doing this too, where they want to have like credit for everything essentially, and they
Mm-hmm.
need everything to be done like their way.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any ways that you have learned to be able to delegate through your times as a leader?
Yeah. I've learned what delegate means through being a leader. Like, right, it was not even in my radar. Like, yeah, I knew what it meant. I knew what the definition was, but like to actually put that in practice, it was something that I had no experience in. But now, like you said, I have to be like, I'm going to repeat myself, but I have to be comfortable with giving the work to other people, even though it's going to be a little uncomfortable for me. But because everyone has their own way of doing things, like everyone's mind works differently, much different than mine. Like our brains probably work much different from each other's, but we're still going to get the work done. It's just going to, the path is just going to look a little different. So when I give work to people, or when we were working on projects, like even like in class, a group project, the work's going to get done. Someone might do it the night before. I might do it 3 weeks before the due date. Like, but the work's going to get done. And like having that trust in people who I lead with, the people who sit on the committee, having that trust in them that their work is good, that their work is credible, and there's a reason why they're involved, and there's a reason why that they are so successful as well, is because they do good work, and trusting that is super important when you're delegating.
Another good resource that I just thought of that
Okay.
could be good for leadership too is, besides some books by Dr. John C. Maxwell, who I had the pleasure of having lunch with here at High Point University, and I wrote
Hmm.
2 blogs about a lot of this stuff. He has a bunch of books
Wait,
on
you had
leadership.
you had lunch with him?
Yes, I did.
Oh, what? That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They have like at High Point, they have a like innovators thing, like an access to innovators thing. So
Hmm.
I was able to sit down and have lunch with him. But
That's
besides
awesome.
some books from him, who he has amazing resources on leadership, and I wrote 2 blogs about the stuff. Besides some of his books, there's this podcast called How Leaders Lead by
Okay.
David Novak. That one is a pretty good podcast for leadership as well. He breaks down a lot of the keys to leadership with
Okay.
some of his notable guests that he has there, which
Awesome.
is cool. That is a good one. Yeah. Thank you for
Awesome.
the
Thank you.
leadership tips as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still learning myself. I'm very new to this.
Of course. Awesome. Let's wrap it up here with some advice that you'd have for other undergrads who are looking to excel and do well in their life, become exceptional. What you got?
Be be comfortable with risk, and take the risk, and take the leap of faith. Something that I also need to take my own advice on, but it's when you take that leap of faith, and when you enter into a risk and really dive into that, and when you don't have control over the situation and how things are going to go, I think that's where I found most success, is when I really surrender myself to the situation and surrender myself to God. If that's when I really see like the most success and the most fruit from my work. So be able to take risk, be vulnerable, and get comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's how you learn. That's how you build a network, and that's how you get involved and make yourself stand out from your peers. And that's how you become an exceptional undergrad.
There we go. Then we're going to end it with that. You wrapped it up perfectly
Boom.
for me right there. We love it. Well, Angelia, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have
Thank you
anything
so much
else
for
that you'd
having
like to
me.
add here as well?
I think that's it. Thank you so much. This was so enjoyable. I'm glad we finally found the time to meet, because I love talking about like business, and like especially with people who are also my age, because I find myself networking and talking with people who are like have established careers, but like talking with people who are also successful is really, I learn a lot from it. So thank you.
Hope you enjoyed another episode of Exceptional Undergrads. If you found inspiration in today's episode, head on over to our website, exceptionalundergrads.com, for all of our show notes and resources from all of our episodes. We're always looking for undergrads to showcase in future episodes. Hit up our Apply Here page, fill out our form, maybe you'll be on the episodes pretty soon. And as always, be the exception.